me, Donald Trump. Welcome to art class with your art teacher, Jennifer Fitzpatrick. I have come to speak to you today so that you know that both the federal government and the state of Illinois consider art a core subject. We need artists. We need makers. We need creators for America to be the very best in the whole world. Thank you. From your president.
My name is Mrs. Fitzpatrick, not Mrs. McPatty, not Mrs. Krabby Patty, not Mrs. St. Patrick, Mrs. Patrick, and definitely not Patrick the Starfish.
My name is Patrick. She's Fitzpatrick.
Before we get started talking about anything this year, we need to talk about the difference between sharing and asking a question. When we share something, we're adding to something the teacher said, we're telling a story, we're giving an example. Now, when we ask a question, it's when we don't understand something and we need the teacher to explain it a different way. Let's start the quiz now. Put your thumbs up in the air if it's a question. Put your thumbs down if it's a share. One time, I was riding my bike. Second question. When is it time for lunch? Third question. I remember going there. Fourth question. Why are we doing this? Fifth question. You know what? Boy, that last one was a trick question because it sounded like a question, but really we all know that when somebody says, you know what, they're about to tell you something. Let's all agree that for these first few weeks, we're going to stick with questions and save our shares for another time. Let's talk about the rules.
Rule number 1. In art class, you are all artists.
Can you point to where these rules are written in the classroom?
Rule number 2. Eyes on the teacher when direction is given and mouths closed.
If the rule is on the wall, you're expected to know it.
Rule number 3. Follow the directions the first time, not the second time, people.
Often when we're working, I'll need to get your attention. The easiest way to get your attention is for me to clap my hands in a pattern and for you to clap back. I'll do this for you twice. After that, I will use the light switch. If I have to flicker the lights, though, it probably means you've lost your compliment. The last way I'll get your attention, and I almost never have to do this, is use my special whistle. Now that we've covered a few of the main rules, I want to address one of the bigger questions, which is, why art? Why are we here? Well, people have always created, and history consists mostly of stories and artifacts. Understanding art is a key to understanding history. Here's the next reason why art's a big deal. Somebody went all across America and asked employers what the #1 skill they were looking for was. And did you know that 72% of them said the first skill that they were looking for was creativity? It turns out that being creative could be the difference between having the job and not having the job. Speaking of jobs, how much of the American economy depends on art? As it turns out, arts and cultural production makes more money in America than the fields of construction, transportation and warehousing, travel and tourism, and even agriculture. Our class is all about doing what artists do. If you get a chance, look at this list out in the hallway and see if you haven't caught yourself doing any one of these things. Now, you've been given a list of all the positive behaviors involved in making art. Now, what happens if we have behaviors that keep us from making art? In my mind, you're either making art or you're making trouble. If you have behaviors that are keeping you from being productive, here is what will happen. First, we'll talk about it in private. We'll try to find out what's going on. Second, if it still becomes a problem, we'll talk about it with your classroom teacher. Maybe she has a solution. Maybe he knows what's going on. And third, if it happens a lot, if this is a pattern, I'm going to call home. Now, I thought it would be helpful for you to know what a phone call home sounds like. Let's listen to an example from our president.
Hello, is this Mrs. Incredible? Why, it's President Donald Trump calling, and I'm calling to let you know that I'm having a little bit of trouble with your son in my classroom. I'm having a hard time getting him to listen. What? You're having the same problems? He's not putting away his clothes. He didn't put away his toys? He stayed up late at night playing video games past his bedtime? That's not very incredible.
As you may have noticed, I do not have a lot of rules in my classroom because I have found that only one rule is needed. It is called the Golden Rule. If you have not heard of it, I have a short video to show you about it so that you can learn the one rule that will help your behavior to stay on track.
Being a good friend means lots of things, like being helpful and kind and respectful. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what's right and wrong when treating others. But if you just remember the golden rule, it becomes much easier. You may have heard of it before. The golden rule says that you should treat others how you want to be treated. If you fell at the playground, for example, would you want other kids to make fun of you? Or would you want them to help you get up and ask if you're okay? I'm guessing you would want them to help you. So that's what you should do if someone else falls. Do you like your friends to play fair with you? Then you should always play fair. Does it hurt your feelings when a friend lies to you? Then you should be truthful with others because that's how you want others to treat you. So, you see how the golden rule works? If we all treat each other how we want to be treated, then we can all be better friends. Good friends care about each other. They don't put each other down or hurt each other's feelings. Good friends respect each other and can disagree without hurting each other. They understand that we are all different and that those differences are what makes us special and unique. So always remember, to be a good friend, follow the golden rule.
The golden rule is really helpful also when we talk to each other about art. We should know enough not to say something about somebody's picture that we wouldn't have said about our own. Kindness is the first rule we can follow when talking about art. A general rule is to be kind, to be helpful, and to be specific. Consider whether your comment is meant to be helpful to another student. Will it help them to grow? Finally, being specific is very important. If I told you your picture was nice, what would that really mean? If I told you your picture had bold lines or vibrant colors, why, I would be saying something very specific, wouldn't I? On the subject of classroom behavior, there is one thing I want to share about seats. We do not have assigned seats. We only have assigned tables. So if two students argue over a seat, no one's going to get that seat. Remember, folks, we make art, not trouble. Never let your seat be more important than your art. This concludes part 1 of making the most of your art time.